Today I'm going to talk about why the levers of pain and pleasure are so important when it comes to lasting change. Right, from a psychological standpoint, right, these underlying themes, levers for want of a better word, of pain and pleasure sort of dominate our behaviour, right? It's those pleasure levers and pain levers that have basically guided us. They're like emotional goalposts. That's what I call them. I think I refer to them in the book as emotional goalposts. And actually, there's a great book by a guy called Dr. Lisley, The Pleasure Trap. It's a really interesting book, and he talks about these emotional goalposts of pleasure and pain that have guided us through the millennia to where we are today. Right, and historically, when we roamed the savannas, they were incredibly important. Pleasure, pain, right? You moved towards pleasure, away from pain. As long as you stayed within those guideposts, you sort of went to where you needed to go, which was survival, for want of a better mission from evolution standpoint, right? And those guideposts serve us today. Don't get me wrong, they're incredibly important as psychological guideposts because we are drawn towards pleasure and away from pain. But very often they trip us up as well, right? We're drawn towards the wrong things and away from the right things very often. So just even getting a quick understanding of why pleasure and pain is important, and then we can use it to our advantage. So there was a brilliant experiment that I'm always fascinated about a few years ago, which looked at this pleasure, pain, and how we physically are drawn towards pleasure and physically drawn away from pain. So this brilliant scientist set up these tests. Basically, first and foremost, he would flash subliminally pleasurable words and painful words, right? So people couldn't see them. Then they'd measure their mood at the end of these tests. It's fascinating for me. So they couldn't even really consciously comprehend the words that were being shown to them, but it would affect their mood. For example, if they were painful words such as hate, anger, at the end of the test, their mood would be lower. Amazing, isn't it? Even though they couldn't consciously grasp what was being shown to them. Equally, if they were pleasurable words like love and happiness and laughter, their mood would be higher. Right, that was step one of the test, right? I love this stuff. And then step two, he actually got a physical lever that you could move one way or the other. You could pull it towards you or move it away from you. And the idea was that he would then flash these words up on the screen slow enough so they could be consciously read. And then the participants would have to move the lever. They could move it either way. Didn't matter. There was no rules to which way they moved the lever when they saw the certain words appear. When the pleasurable words started to appear, naturally, without any indication, people would pull the lever towards them, and when the painful words started to appear, they would push the lever away on average. Isn't that fascinating? Like this real archetypical, like subconscious human layer, we are drawn towards pleasure and away from pain. And actually, to extend that test further, what he did, he then said to everyone to do the inverse, right, of what felt natural, i.e. if a pleasurable word was shown on the screen, they had to push the lever away, and if a painful word was shown, they had to pull the lever towards them. They then measured the reaction time, and the reaction time was way slower when they had to do the inverse, because obviously all of their like subconscious coding was saying bring the pleasure towards you, yet they had to physically try and push it away, which slowed down their times. And that's just a brilliant example of how this stuff is going on at a subconscious level that very often we're not even conscious of, that we're drawn towards pleasure and away from pain. And where this gets really interesting for me is when you start to get that understanding, you understand how these things work, you can start to use it to your advantage. For example, when it comes to achieving your goals, and we've done this a lot around alcohol in all the work that I've done, with One Beer over the years, identifying your whys, why you want to take a break from alcohol, or why you want to get super fit and healthy, or why you want to transform your career, is a really powerful motivational tool, right? And the master of motivation, in my opinion, Anthony Robbins, who I love and adore, I think he's brilliant. He likes to do a lot of work around the emotions of pleasure and pain. He's figured it out that if you can build up enough emotional discomfort, pain, it will propel you towards your goal. And equally, if you can build up enough pleasure, you're drawn towards that goal. Or the combination of both is even more powerful, right? So we do a lot of this around the work that we do, again, at One You Know Beer, but it works for any goal that you're trying to achieve or anything that you're trying to reach in your life. You can leverage both of those levers to your advantage. For example, let's just stick with the alcohol theme. If you're trying to take a break from alcohol and you've got all these wonderful reasons why, because you want to be fitter, faster, better parent, whatever it is, they're all those pleasurable reasons why. They're really motivating because you're drawn towards them, right? So you're drawn and you're motivated to achieve your goal because you want to be a better parent and fitter and faster and all these pleasurable whys. Equally, you've got those painful whys. You know, I want to take a break from alcohol because I don't want to be tired anymore. I don't want to be grumpy. Do you see what I mean? You've got those painful whys which have the same effect to draw you in the same direction, which is towards your goal of taking a break from alcohol. So when you've got this understanding, you can get really tactical with it. Whatever goal that you have or mission that you have in mind, think about the pleasure lever, all the things that you're going to be drawn to, all those wonderful whys, and then all those painful whys, the inverse almost, that you're going to be repelled from. But if you can imagine, both those levers are pushing you in the same direction, which is towards achieving the goal it is you wish to achieve. Now, little caveat and a personal preference, I am much more all about, as you can imagine, the pleasurable whys. I understand the power of pain, right, and painful emotion and how it can actually propel us to achieve our goals, but I don't like to hang out in the pain too long, right, because I think there is a danger you overcook it, and all the work that I've been doing with you guys and talking about is about building this real positive mindset and this positive outlook on life. And if you hang around in those painful levers too long, I think it can start to sort of cloud your world in a negative way. So be a bit tactical about it. I would much prefer, when it comes to creating those levers in your life towards achieving your goals, that you massively overload it with the pleasure. And then stick in a little bit of pain, because some people really respond to that, a little bit of almost those fearful whys, just to give you a little bit of fire, but don't hang in there too long. Like, focus predominantly on the pleasurable whys. For me, I think that's got a much better long-term result, because I think if you hang around in the pain too long, you start getting that self-criticism, you can start being hard on yourself, you start to bring out that stick to beat yourself with, and we know from the science that doesn't really work. But there's definitely a place for those painful whys, because back to that research I showed you, we are inherently drawn towards pleasure and away from pain. So if you can tinker with those levers a bit, it's often a brilliant way to create a real powerful motivational force to propel you towards whatever goal it is you're trying to achieve. So I just thought I'd share that with you today. So a bit of homework if you want to play along. Just think about any goals that you're trying to achieve, and then try and list as many whys, positive reason why, that you're going to be drawn towards, and then list a handful of painful whys, the things that you're going to want to move away from to achieve the same goal. Just experiment with this stuff. It's all getting to know thyself better, and it's just going to give you a slightly different take on the way that you can use whys to reach your goals. Cool.